Hey everyone, my name is Aya Zabeda, and I'm actually going to be talking about a very sort of intense topic today, discussing about discrimination against transgendered individuals. Now, the transgendered community has actually been around for a very long time now. I believe since the 80s, maybe a little bit longer. Don't quote me on that, but it's been going on for a very, very long time, a lot longer than I've actually been alive. And it all started out, actually, I believe the first influencer, or one of the first influencers that was out there, was RuPaul Charles. Now, RuPaul is actually not a transgender individual. He is considered gay. However, he is considered a drag queen and a very influential person in the LGBTQ community. So RuPaul is always speaking out in regards to the transgendered individuals and constantly having their back. So transgendered people have been around for quite some time, and I think people forget that actually, especially nowadays with social media and having access to everyone's lives essentially online. So I'm going to actually be talking about a few different things about the discrimination against transgendered people. The first thing I want to get into is actually mostly have to do with healthcare. I actually work in a healthcare field, and I don't see a lot of transgendered patients, especially being in Kentucky. In actual geographical speaking, we don't see a lot of transgendered patients, and that has actually a big factor as far as how they're discriminated. With being in the South, there's definitely religious aspects that go into it, cultural beliefs, that definitely play a factor into how transgendered individuals are not treated fairly like everybody else. So transgendered people definitely do not have access to the basic fundamental human right of healthcare. Healthcare is very, very important. Everybody needs it to essentially stay alive, whether it be having a physician that they go to, have access to a pharmacy to get pills for just their health, whatever the case may be. They don't have access to healthcare, and it could be a numerous amount of reasons. Price has a lot to do with it, as I stated before, location, and even physicians who are actually ignorant and don't know really anything about transgendered individuals. They're not experienced in that particular field of study. So it's very hard, I can imagine, for a transgendered person to find a doctor who knows exactly what it is that they're doing. Keep in mind, they have to go through a lot of changes in their body. They have to go through, I believe it's hormone therapy. They have to take all these different types of, whether it's transitioning from a male to a female, they have to take constant amounts of estrogen to be able for their body to really function as a female, and same as the other way around. A female has to take a lot of testosterone for that to essentially work in the body, and they're really flipping it. And there's also the reconstructive surgery that goes into that. I'm pretty sure physicians are able to do that, but it also plays into a factor of the actual cultural belief and religious beliefs, if a physician is even willing to do it. They maybe hinder themselves because of what they believed in, and that's not fair. It's not right at all. Every transgender, and no matter who you are, whether it be transgendered, straight, bisexual, gay, it doesn't matter. You should have access to healthcare and not be judged for it. It's not right. You are a human being, and you need to have the fundamental right to access to healthcare. Another thing I want to get into is that, with that being said, as far as healthcare going on, is that transgender individuals, they have a lot to pay for. Their reconstructive surgery is a lot of money. Most insurance companies probably won't pay for it, which isn't fair either. That's another form of discrimination. Their copays may be significantly higher just because they're transgendered. The medications that they're taking could be significantly higher because they're transgendered. In the end, it's not fair. They're being treated unfairly because of what process that they're trying to go to, or who they're really trying to become, because they don't feel right on the inside. So personally, I can see that they're being discriminated and treated unfairly all the time, especially in the healthcare field. I believe that wholeheartedly, that regardless of what gender or orientation that you are, You should just be treated fairly because you're still a human being and you have the right to live. Another situation I was looking into is that it's going to be very costly for them, and location is going to be a problem too. As I stated before, with it being in the South, you probably are going to have to go out west to find a physician who is willing to do that, and I've seen that trend. A lot of transgender individuals, especially in the South, are kind of migrating out to the West, like California, Arizona, or whatever the case may be, to really find a doctor who's willing to do it, and it's going to cost them a lot of money to do it, and that's not cool. And that's all coming from the first article that I was looking into, called National Transgender Discrimination Survey. So it's got a lot of different types of facts of studies that they've done and surveys to see what percentages are being actually taken into account for any transgendered individual, kind of like basing that on a whole as well. Another thing I want to get into is the suicide rate of transgendered individuals. We live now in a day and age where technology and social media are pretty much the driving force of everything, and that definitely plays a large factor into the suicide rate of these people, especially if they're at a young age. Now, teenagers, they're not, I don't want to say they're not developed all mentally, but they still have a lot to learn, and they could definitely be easily influenced by anybody else's word and take it insanely to heart, sometimes a little bit more than they should. So that definitely has a factor in it as far as social media is concerned, and they get bullied online. I've definitely seen it. I've seen screenshots and everything like that, so that definitely has a large factor to do with any sort of suicide rate being increased with transgendered individuals. I like to consider it as insta-bullying. I mean, it's not sourced anywhere, but that's definitely how I see it as being insta-bullied. I mean, in the end, I personally, at myself, I like to treat others the way that I want to be treated, so it's not right for me to discriminate somebody else just because they look different or they have different parts, or whatever the case may be. I look different. I have full-on black hair, really bushy eyebrows. One of them actually is kind of deformed, but who am I to judge someone else who's wanting to be happier with themselves? And that's what I believe wholeheartedly. Thanks.